Hello, class. Welcome to your Friday or your weekend video whenever you're watching this. If you missed this past Tuesday's class, and some of you all did and didn't let me know, I'm assuming there were no emergencies or illnesses or any problems like that. Make sure you talk to one of your fellow classmates and get the notes, because unless it is an emergency, an illness, something like that, I don't share slides. So talk to your fellow classmates, see if they'll let you look at their notes or talk about what we talked about on Tuesday, because it was a big content day. We did quite a lot. Going forward, this next Tuesday is also a big content day. So letting you know, please come to class on Tuesday. We have a speech coming up very quickly, and all the things that we're talking about on Tuesdays and on these videos are important to your being totally prepared to give that next speech. So let's just jump right in, get started. Let me share my screen and get my slideshow going here. All right, so on Tuesday, we talked about the very beginning of organizing a speech, from developing your general purpose and your specific purpose for giving a speech to coming up with the central idea or the thesis statement. So now we have that beginning stuff out of the way. The next part is going to be gathering the evidence that is going to comprise the main points of a speech and then back up those main points. So we're going to be looking at supporting the ideas that you want to share in a speech. All of the points that you want to make in your speech must be supported by evidence, by data, by research, by information. Why is this? Well, unless you're an expert, can people really trust what you're saying? You need to have the data to back it up. And again, unless you're an expert in your field, and sometimes even when you are an expert, you need backup from reliable sources. It's not enough just to make a statement and then think, all right, trust me on this. We need to be able to provide information that says we know what we're talking about, so that the listeners can listen to what we're saying and think, okay, I can go along with what this person's saying because they're explaining it and they're telling me where they got their information. So that's cool. All right, there are several ways that you can support your ideas. The first way we're going to talk about is by using an example. An example is a specific case or situation that illustrates your point or represents the people or ideas or experiences that you're talking about. It's pretty much what it says on the package. There are a few types of examples. You can give a brief example, something that just comes out. Here's a statement that describes what I was just talking about. So you know that I work with road construction people, and if I were going to give a speech to a community on types of innovative traffic design tools that we use, and innovative traffic design, I know that sounds so interesting, but one of the types of innovative traffic design that we use a lot nowadays is called a roundabout. And so if I were giving a speech and I were talking about why innovative traffic design is important to communities, I might say, one example of innovative traffic design is the roundabout. Some people might call them a traffic circle, and it basically connects all the points of an intersection with a circle, keeping traffic moving in one direction. Just a sentence or two, bada boom, bada bing, I've described something that I'm talking about. An extended or narrative example is a much longer developed idea, an explanation for whatever you're going to be talking about. And then sometimes you can give a hypothetical example. Hypothetical means it's basically asking people to use their imagination and put themselves into a scenario that you're describing with hopes that they can identify with what you're talking about. So perhaps, you know, if I'm doing my speech on using unique ingredients while I'm making boxed cookie mix, I think you've heard me talk about this before. I could say in my speech, now imagine you're in your kitchen and you really want to bake some cookies. You've got your boxed cookie mix, you've got your egg and your milk, all the things that you really need to make an ordinary box of cookies, but you're kind of bored with the same old thing. You want to try something different, but you don't want to get too different and just start doing everything from scratch, what do? You know, I've described a situation, didn't really happen, happened in my brain, but you could imagine yourself in that situation, and I've brought you with me in my little tale, so I can then get to, well, if you have some unusual ingredients, you might consider using them in your box cookie mixes. And today I'm going to be telling you about some unusual cookie ingredients you can use to make your box cookie mixes more interesting. Does that make sense? Hope so. All right, so moving on. The next way we can support your ideas in giving a speech is with statistics. Statistics are all the forms of numerical data that we can use to help make our points. They give values to your arguments and your points. You always want to cite your sources and say where you got the statistics, because sometimes where you got them is as meaningful as the numbers themselves. And they sometimes require an explanation or an interpretation of why the stats are important. For example, let's say I was talking about a traffic accident, and I can say that a car was pushed 100 yards down a street because it had been hit with such force. Well, 100 yards, is that a long distance? Is it a short distance? 100 yards, I mean, try to picture that in your head. But if I say 100 yards is the length of a football field. So imagine a car being hit with such force, it travels the length of a football field. Aha, I've explained to you why that 100 yards is so interesting. And you can easily imagine, oh, that's quite a long way. So sometimes you need to explain the numbers if they're a little vague in and of themselves. They can also be useful on visual aids. And sometimes using a chart or a graph can help make your point more easily. Third type of support that we can give to ideas is through testimony. Testimony includes quotations and paraphrases that help to illustrate or support your point. Testimony is an experience or comments from somebody else that helps lend credence to what you're trying to say. So sometimes you can have expert testimony, you know, someone who is a professional or who has a lot of experience with regard to what you're talking about. And then sometimes we use peer testimony. Peer testimony is information, the experiences and quotes that come from someone who's just like you. For example, if I'm talking about my cookies thing again, I could get a quote from a professional chef, and that might be my expert testimony. Or I could get a quote from my mom, because she bakes a lot, and that would be more like peer testimony. There is a difference between using quotes and paraphrases. If it's short, go ahead and use a quote. A quote is a word for word transcription of what someone has said. But if what they say is long and you don't want to spend a minute of your speech explaining something that somebody said, a paraphrase is what you'd use. It's a shortened, brief interpretation of what they've said. And you might say, you know, according to Chef Judy Maxson, in talking about dressing up box cookie mixes, to paraphrase her, you know, why not try it? What have you got to lose except for the $1.50 you spent on the cookie mix? You know, maybe her entire quote was like really long, but you don't want to spend all that time in your speech, so you shorten it up, call it a paraphrase. You always want to cite the person who said the information that you're sharing, whether it is a quote or it's paraphrase. And we're going to talk about citing your sources a little bit later on. Right now, as a matter of fact. So citing your sources. In a speech, you have to verbally state who or where your information has come from. In a report, like a term paper, you have to write, you know, and you give endnotes. We will have a bibliography with our outline, but because we can't just, you know, show people our endnotes after a speech, you have to, during your speech, say where you've got the information from as part of the text. So what do you need to share? You have to share the item that's being cited, whether it's a book or an article or a blog, wherever the information came from, the author of that item, whether it's a book or an article or blog, why that author is credible. If you don't think many people have probably heard of that person. And then the date that that item was published or uploaded or that person spoke. So, an example, let's say I want to give a speech on gaining confidence in public speaking. We talked about some of this in past Tuesday class. And I use a book called The Quick and Easy Way to Effective Public Speaking by Dale Carnegie. He wrote, it's a very popular book, it came from 1962. A lot of people still use this book. And I find this interesting statistic. 90% of how well a talk will go is determined before the speech even starts. It's all in the preparation. And I find, that's a very interesting statistic. I really would like to use that in my speech. I have to say where I got that information. I can't just get up there and go, 90% of how well a talk is going to go is determined before the speech even starts. If I just present that information, the listeners are going to be thinking, well, where did she get that information? Did she make it up? Did she do some research? Where did she get it? I mean, is it like she got it from just someone she knows or someone famous? I mean, who is this? So that's why I need to cite where I got the information. So you know that it's credible and you know that it's truthful. So I could probably say it like this. According to Dale Carnegie, that's the person who said it, in his landmark book, that's the item, The Quick and Easy Way to Effective Public Speaking, give the title of the book, 90% of how well the talk will go is determined before the speech even starts. And if I want to put the year in it, I could say, according to Dale Carnegie in his landmark 1962 book, The Quick and Easy Way to Effective Public Speaking, 90% of how well the talk will go is determined before the speech even starts. So that people who are listening to my speech know that's where I got the information, that person is well thought of, they don't have to wonder where it came from, and they can just accept what I say and move on. All right, we got another example. If I'm giving a speech on why people should teach their kids how to cook, which I think they should do, I found this article on the interwebs. It's called The Top 10 Reasons to Teach Kids How to Cook. That's pretty straightforward. Sounds like some interesting information to me. And it's on this website called thespruceeats.com, which is a very popular cooking recipe blog and website. It's also related to a famous restaurant. I think it's in New York. But who wrote this article was Stephanie Gallagher. And it looks like the post was uploaded, or the article, on February 10th, 2021. So remember, I need to say where I got information. So let's say when I'm reading thespruceeats.com, this article, and she says in her article, kids try and enjoy a wider variety of foods if they cook. And that's a good reason for why people should teach their kids to cook. So if I want to share that reason, now that I didn't come out of my own head, Stephanie Gallagher said it, but I think it's a pretty good point. So I would include it in my speech, but because it didn't come out of my head, I have to say where it came from. And so I would say it like this: kids try and enjoy a wider variety of foods if they cook, says Stephanie Gallagher on thespruceeats.com, a website for home cooks, in her February 2021 article. Now, you'll see I put her name in there, and I said where I get the information. So Stephanie Gallagher on thespruceeats.com. If you've not heard of thespruceeats.com, you're going to be like, well, why is that, pertinent to this? What do they know? So that's why I need to explain a little bit. It's a website for home cooks, in her February 2021 article, and that explains the time. So it sounds a little awkward, but honestly, it really does help your audience understand that the information you're presenting is thoughtful, is credible, is trustworthy, and that you've done the work for this speech. They can trust what you're saying and they can just go right along with it. Okay, so our first speech that we're going to be giving in class is an informative speech. We talked a little bit about informative speeches this past Tuesday, but right now we're going to jump into them in earnest. So start listening, because you're going to have to give one of these types of speeches coming up in 2 weeks. Is that right? Yikes. There are a few types of informative speeches, and they include speeches about objects. Objects are like nouns, they're a thing. It basically explains something. So if I wanted to give an informative speech about telescopes, that's a thing. My specific purpose could be to inform my audience about the history of telescopes, or to inform my audience about the various types of telescopes. You know, it's just very straightforward and it's about a thing. That's it. So the next type of informative speech is a speech about a process, how things are done or how they work. Moving on from the telescopes, my specific purpose could be to inform my audience on how telescopes work, or to inform my audience about computerized telescopes and how they work. How did I do this? I need to scooch forward. Thank you very much. I can't believe I hit that button. Pretend like you didn't see that. So the next type of speech we could give as an informative speech is a speech about an event. They're about things that happen, and you're basically just talking about the event. I could give a specific purpose for a speech to inform my audience about the launch of the new James Webb Space Telescope, which just happened a few weeks ago, and I still think you all should learn more about it because that's awesome. The launch was a happening. And honestly, I think it's going to be super influential to the science community for decades to come. So that's worth sharing, I think, giving a speech about. And then we have speeches about concepts, about ideas, but those are also explanation speeches, but a little more esoteric. So they probably require a little bit more information. For example, a specific purpose for an informative speech like this would be to inform my audience of the concepts behind the Big Bang Theory. Now, not the TV show, but the actual Big Bang Theory of how the universe was created. And that's a concept or an idea, it's a theory. It would take a long speech. So I don't recommend you doing it in 3 to 5 minutes, but that would be a speech about a concept. So when you're preparing an informative speech, some things to think about. One, don't overestimate what the audience knows. Always assume, unless it's a speech that you're giving to a group of people who all have a similar background and you know this, assume that they might not know much about what you're talking about. So for example, if I'm giving a speech to my coworkers on how to use a new computer application, I can assume, since we're all coworkers, we all use the same types of computers, that I don't have to explain things from the beginning. I can just start talking about the new application and how we're going to use it with the work we do. I don't have to talk about the work so much. I just have to talk about the app. However, we had some folks on Tuesday talk about possibly giving speeches about gaming. And for example, if you're going to give that speech in our class, I don't play a lot of video games. So if you're in on the latest stuff, you can't assume that I'm going to know what you're talking about with the latest games, because I think the last video game I played was Mario Kart, and it was years ago. I just don't have time, honestly, to play video games. So don't be like, in Minecraft when da 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 da, or in Fortnite da da da. And I know those are even a couple years old. But you can't assume that a member of the audience, is going to be like, oh, sure, I get that. I might be like, I don't know. You need to also find ways to make your topic relate to the audience. So if you are going to be talking about gaming and you're not sure what we all know, you might want to find some of those examples, or figuring out how you might explain some of the concepts you're talking about in ways that everybody can understand. Don't use specialized jargon. Don't be too technical. I tell you, I work with engineers, civil engineers, mechanical engineers, industrial engineers all day long, and they are full of jargon. And I'm always having to translate when I do my speeches. So sometimes the engineer will come up to me, we have a road project getting ready to start, and he'll get some information, and it might be, we have an NTP that was just released, da 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 da. I'm not going to put in my speech that an NTP was just released, because do you know what that means? No, that's specialized jargon. That's a notice to proceed. So I probably need to share the words so you understand what I'm talking about. And I probably need to explain what a notice to proceed is. So I might say, well, this project just had a notice to proceed released. A notice to proceed basically informs the contractor that they can go ahead and start working on the project, that the funds that are used from this point on are guaranteed to be paid. You also sometimes want to personalize your topic if it has a personal meaning for you. If you're giving a speech about gaming and you're talking about your favorite game, you might want to share with us that this is your favorite game and why. Well, it wouldn't be a whole main point, but it might help us to understand why you're so interested in this particular topic. Lastly, be creative. Don't just be full of declarative sentences and just explain. Use some good examples, use some good statistics, get some good testimony, get something that really makes your topic come alive to all of the audience. Whew. Honestly, this wasn't such a long video. I'm kind of surprised, but you do have some homework. So let me say, got two things going on. Let me move me. There we go. Your first remote exercise that's going to be due Sunday night at 11:59. And I know last week I messed it up and made it Monday night, but just know it's definitely Sunday night this time. Sunday night, 11:59, due. Your informative speech topic. Need to have that topic picked out so we can start working on you putting your speech together. For your informative speech, please know it needs to be something that you can talk about for 3 to 5 minutes, which honestly is not a lot of time. I know it sounds like a lot, but 3 minutes, honestly, you boil an egg for longer than that. It's really not so long. It'll seem like it when you're putting it together, but just trust me, it's not that bad. So in a Word document, as you've been doing lately, list for your speech what the general purpose is going to be, what the general topic is going to be, what the specific purpose of your speech is going to be, what you propose your central idea to be. Remember, it has to be a complete sentence, and the type of informative speech that you'll be giving. Is it about an object? Is it about a process? Is it about an event? Or is it about a concept? This is not a lot of work to do, except for you have to choose. Now, this past Tuesday, we went through a long exercise on how to narrow a topic into something that you could give a speech about. So if you went through that, this should be no big problem for you. You know how to brainstorm and pare it down. If you didn't go through Tuesday, you might talk to someone who was there or read the chapters. That'll probably help you so that you can put together your general purpose, your general topic, your specific purpose, your central idea, and then the type of speech we just talked about. Be sure to upload that Word document. Remember, the name, date, and class due, 11:59 this Sunday. So that's remote exercise 1. Next, and I'm going to move myself again. Telling a joke can be public speaking. We need to get used to doing public speaking. And one of the best ways to kind of start off is by telling a joke. So record yourself with your laptop, like I'm doing, or your phone. Remember, we always go horizontal, not vertical. You record yourself like this, not this. I know it seems weird to do it like this, but trust me, this will look better. The joke must be at least a minute to 90 seconds long, so time yourself. It can't, like a riddle, it has 2 lines in it. No knock-knock jokes, because you have to do both parts and it's lame. It has to be an actual joke. Frame yourself horizontally, as I've already said. You want to give yourself a head and shoulder shot like I'm doing here. See my little square? You can see my head and my shoulders, but that's it. And then whatever's around you can be there. Don't be in front of like a weird, messy room. Find a nice place, because otherwise we're all going to start looking at what's in your room and going like, what do they have in there? It can be distracting. I look at the camera. Now, in my laptop, my camera is right there. I'm pointing to it. Don't look at yourself, because if I do that, I'm looking at myself now. It looks like I'm looking like off screen, right? So find where the camera is. You might have a camera that you plug in. Look at the camera. Don't look at yourself. If I'm looking at myself on the screen, I'm looking like down here, and it doesn't look like I'm looking at you all, does it? It's harder to do than it sounds. You can do it for a minute. So I want you to record yourself telling a joke. Has to be 60 seconds to 90 seconds long. You're gonna save the file, rename it with your last name plus the word joke. So in my case, it would be Brooks-joke. And you're gonna upload it to Moodle by 11:59 Sunday. I do have some requirements for you. 1, clean jokes only. No cuss words, no sexy time kind of videos. We need it to be a clean joke. Funny is good. Honestly, I won't require it to be funny, but funny is better if it's going to be a joke. Be creative. You don't have to come up with your own joke. You can find a joke as long as it lasts at least 60 seconds and doesn't go longer than 90. The other thing is, please don't do an offensive joke or something that could be offensive to somebody else. For example, don't do like a blonde joke, stupid blonde joke, because I'm going to look at that and be like, hey, you don't want to do an ethnic joke because, honestly, we don't need any offense. We don't need anybody unhappy after this class. It should be a fun assignment. Find a fun, clean joke that you could tell a kid, or you could tell a friend at work and not get in trouble with. All right. So we're going to watch these in class. It's so much fun. And then I do have other videos to kind of explain some of the things we've talked about in class today. We're going to see those on Tuesday too. Tuesday is going to be jam-packed with stuff. So please come Tuesday. Please, 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 because if you miss a class, you miss a lot. And I don't want you all to be on your own when you're trying to organize your speech, put it together, work on it, make sure it's in the shape that it needs to be. I want you to be able to understand everything and feel really confident when you're giving your speech when it's due. So don't forget your 2 assignments. They're both due Sunday night. Don't forget, you can email, text, or call me if you have questions or concerns. And have fun. This class should really be fun. Honestly, we had fun this past Tuesday. I wish everyone had been there. I'm going to say it again. I wish everyone had been there. It was a really fun class. Come this next Tuesday. It'll be fun again. So for now, I'm going to sign off. Y'all have a good weekend, and I will see you on Tuesday.